Who are some of the worst scammers going after lonely hearts? Let's get started with number 6. Ghanaian romance scammer actually caught. FAIZ Montrage, a Ghanaian social media influencer, allegedly swindled millions as part of a lonely heart scam. From 2013 to 2019, Montrage worked with a group of West African con artists to assume fake identities and trick people into thinking they were in relationships with her. Montrage sent texts, emails, and social media messages to older, vulnerable men and women in the U.S. The influencer had amassed 4.2 million Instagram followers and advertised herself as a musician who led a glamorous lifestyle, jet-setting from Accra to London. Her Instagram was among the top 10 profiles with the highest number of followers in Ghana. Behind the scenes, Montrage targeted vulnerable men and women that lived alone, convincing them they were in a relationship. Montrage and the other members of the scammer enterprise contacted victims via online dating and social media apps. Once the scammers gained their victims' trust, she requested they transfer her money under false pretenses. Sometimes it was moving gold to the U.S. from overseas, helping fake U.S. Army officers in Afghanistan, or resolving bogus FBI investigations. Montrage even deceived one of her victims into thinking they were married. After establishing a relationship and even giving him her real name, Montrage sent a tribal marriage certificate that would have made their marriage legitimate in Ghana. After getting married, Montrage asked her new spouse for money to help her father's goat farm in Ghana. The victim sent 82 wire transfers totaling $89,000 to Montrage's accounts. Montrage withdrew the funds, then transferred and laundered the proceeds to her other members of the operation. She also received money that scammers swindled from other victims in her network. Montrage scammed $2 million from her victims before her arrest in November 2022. She pleaded not guilty to wire fraud, money laundering, receipt of stolen money, and conspiracy. If found guilty, she faces up to 20 years in jail. Sounds like Montrage will be Ghana away for a long time. Number 5. Hinging on a lie. Tech executive SHREYA Datta lost hundreds of thousands of dollars due to a pig butchering scam. Datta earned a 6-figure salary at a global tech firm, but felt there was a hole in her life that only a romantic partner could fill. She was newly divorced and decided it was time to find love again. Instead, she lost $450,000 to the man she thought she loved. Datta fell victim to pig butchering, a long con where scammers fatten up victims and then take every penny the target has. Datta created a profile on the popular dating app Hinge. She was matched with a man she believed to be a handsome French wine trader called Ancel, who had recently moved to Philadelphia. As a resident of the Philly suburbs, Datta was excited to connect with someone nearby. Their conversations on Hinge were standard for two people forming a romantic connection, but the tone changed when they moved to WhatsApp. He deleted his Hinge account, saying he wanted to focus solely on his relationship with Datta. Ancel told Datta about his dream to be wealthy and his interest in crypto. He explained that he didn't want to spend his entire life working, and with more money, they could travel around the world. They planned to finally meet in person when Datta returned from a trip to India to visit her family. But when she returned, Ancel told her he had to go on a business trip to San Francisco. Ancel advised Datta to download a crypto trading app through a link he sent her. She converted $1,000 of her savings into digital currency through the exchange platform Coinbase. Datta then sent money to a trading app and watched her investment rapidly grow to $1,250. She invested a further $6,000, which grew to $9,000. Ancel told her that if she wanted to continue making money, she would need to up her investment. The couple didn't just talk about crypto, though. The pair spoke about their favorite meals, and Ancel checked in on Datta to ask about things like if she'd eaten yet that day. Datta felt she had finally found someone who cared about her well-being, but they still couldn't meet in person. Ancel claimed he had to care for his uncle who had terminal cancer. They video chatted, but Ancel seemed shy and didn't let the camera linger on his face. Instead, he showed her his dog. Ancel continued to urge her to take out personal loans and sell her stocks for investment funds. He also loaned her $150,000, further gaining her trust. However, Ancel insisted she needed to invest more. When Datta struggled to access her 401k, Ancel's attitude changed, and he demanded to know why she couldn't control her money. Embarrassed, Datta liquidated her retirement fund and put $450,000 into the crypto app. It appeared her funds had doubled, but when she tried to withdraw the money, she received a message saying she needed to pay a 10% personal income tax. Aware something wasn't right, she contacted her brother, a lawyer in London, London. He hired a private investigator who discovered that Ancel's account was fake. Although she filed reports with the FBI, and although her family bailed her out of debt, Datta has yet to get the lost funds back. Number 4. A grave plot. Serkan Kegusus conned a wealthy older woman out of hundreds of thousands of dollars, then ended her life. Kegusus met Norma Girolami in the hot tub at her local swimming pool. After flirting with her, 42-year-old Kegusus initiated a romantic relationship with the 70-year-old. Although he claimed unemployment benefits and lived with his parents, Kegusus raised suspicion among his family and friends when he made extravagant purchases well beyond his means. Kegusus bought a $25,000 car and a new gaming console, visited Turkey for a hair transplant, purchased designer clothes, and had $165,000 in his bank account. All of it was funded by Girolami. Although their romantic relationship ended, Kegusus' request for cash did not. He demanded $382,000 from Girolami. Due to the emotional turmoil of losing her father and her funds dwindling, Girolami stopped fulfilling Kegusus' demands. By May 2021, she completely stopped sending him money. Aware that his luxurious lifestyle was ending, he took drastic measures to get his hands on Girolami's cash. Girolami disappeared the day she was supposed to return home from a day out at the seaside in Leigh-on-Sea, Essex. Kegusus had applied for loans in her name and drained her bank accounts, but told her friends she was alive and would come home soon. Investigators discovered suspicious online searches Kegusus made for hydrochloric acid, garden tools, and caustic soda. He also researched transferring property deeds and will and testament information. Additionally, he purchased handcuffs, gloves, tape, plastic overalls, and a fork tool from Amazon. Girolami was missing for 15 months. During their frantic search, law enforcement analyzed security camera footage and examined forensics. The final clue that led them to Girolami's body was Kegusus' cell phone data, which revealed he was in a churchyard around the time of her disappearance. They discovered her remains in a shallow grave when they visited the location. Authorities arrested Kegusus, who had changed his name to SHREYA and planned to start a new life in Canada. He admitted to concealing and burying Girolami's body and perverting the course of justice, but denied the murder. He attempted to convince the jury that, although she passed away in his presence, it happened due to natural causes. She had fractured ribs, but the defense argued that she sustained the injuries due to Kegusus' attempt to perform chest compressions. Kegusus also alleged that Girolami was lonely and willing to pay for his company. Since she never reported him to the police for assault or appeared to have bruises or an injury, there was no evidence to suggest that Kegusus could have hurt her. Friends described Girolami as a kind, fun-loving woman who could be overly generous and had been in abusive past relationships. They tried to convince her to stop sending Kegusus money, but she was afraid of him and didn't know what he would do if she said no. He acknowledged how bad his actions made him look, but pressed that he wasn't responsible for her passing. The jury didn't fall for his excuses and found him guilty. Number 3. Secret agent husband. Scottish-born Mary Turner Thompson thought she had met her dream man, but discovered her American husband was living a double life. The single mother met William Allen Jordan online and found him very charming. They sent emails back and forth, and he'd already proposed within 2 weeks of dating. Although Jordan claimed to be infertile due to having mumps as a child, Thompson was pregnant 6 months into their relationship. Jordan also claimed to be a CIA agent working with Britain's MI5. Due to his job, he often traveled on missions, spending long periods away from Thompson and her children. She didn't know that his work trips were a cover to see his other family. Jordan had told Thompson extravagant lies. While she was pregnant, Jordan claimed he met someone on an undercover operation that demanded $255,000. They threatened to take their children's lives if Jordan didn't give the potential kidnappers the money. Thompson sold everything she owned, from her house and car to her life insurance, to protect her children. It took another 2 years for Thompson to discover the truth when an American woman called her and revealed herself as Jordan's other wife. The two women met at a cafe and talked for hours. After the meeting, Thompson immediately dumped him. Jordan denied her accusations and never wavered from his story, stating that time would vindicate him. When his actions came to light, he was charged and jailed in the UK. He was deported to the US upon his release. Number 2. Completely charmed. Retired Australian nurse Marjan de Wilt lost her life savings in a cruel romance scam. The single mother of 3 from Adelaide met a charming businessman named Kyle on a dating website. Having struggled to meet somebody her age, Wilt set up an online dating profile. She matched with Kyle, who claimed he was also from Adelaide, but spent years traveling the world for work. He lost his wife 5 years ago and was eager to find a partner to spend the rest of his life with. Kyle seemed perfect. He was charismatic and generous, qualities Wilt thought would make him the perfect partner. He accelerated the relationship by sending her roses, bath towels with her name embroidered on them, and a teddy bear. Kyle even announced he was ready to return to Australia and be with her. He sent her a copy of his flight tickets, and she eagerly awaited his arrival. Then, the money request started. Kyle wanted Wilt to keep their relationship private, as it was in its infancy. Once he knew she was isolated from her family and friends, he made up excuses about why he needed money. On one occasion, Kyle told her he had been detained and needed cash for his passport. He also convinced her to invest some of her money to set them up for life. Over 2 months, she sent him $78,000 and $20,000 from her credit card. Despite draining her accounts to keep up with Kyle's demands, she didn't tell anyone about what was happening. When she realized she was the victim of an online romance scam, she told her son, Marcel Blanche-de-Wilt, about the situation. He looked through her bank account and discovered that the scammer had stolen almost $100,000. They attempted to report Kyle to the police, but couldn't do anything as the scam operated overseas. Wilt admitted that Kyle slowly brainwashed her and that she found it too difficult to say no to somebody in need. Marcel tried to help recover his mother's lost money, but it was near impossible. He confronted her bank for not catching Wilt's suspicious transactions, saying they should have contacted her about the charges before approving them. American Express forgave $9,000 of Wilt's credit card bill, stopping debt collectors from chasing her. Wilt and her son filed a complaint with the Australian Financial Complaints Authority, known as the AFCA. The ombudsman found that 5 of Wilt's 6 transactions weren't the bank's fault. For the 6th transaction, the AFCA asserted that the bank should have figured out something was amiss when she withdrew $25,000 after multiple large withdrawals. They ordered the bank to refund the $25,000 plus interest. It's a far cry from what she lost, but it's still more than most victims get. If you're loving this video, be sure to stay right here for our past release to find out what happens when the scammer actually falls in love. Number 1. She was everything. Con woman Nava Ziva Shapiro conned New York movie producer Dean Bivens out of over $1 million for intimate relations. Bivens met Shapiro during a film release party in May 2016. She introduced herself as a film industry consultant and broker and claimed to know big names in the industry like George Soros, Carl Icahn, Warren Buffett, and Bruce Lipnick. Shapiro offered to help Bivens promote his work at Groovy Boots Productions, where he was president. Instead, she lured him into a fake romantic relationship. When they met, Bivens had been single for 10 years, making him an easy target for the fraudster. Shapiro told him that she recently fell on hard times, but with his help, she would get back on her feet. Due to being raised in an Orthodox Jewish family, Shapiro claimed she needed designer shoes and sexy lingerie to be intimate. She also stated she could only engage in a physical relationship when they stayed in fancy hotels. Us too. So Bivens paid for nights at high-end hotels like the Waldorf Astoria, the New York Palace, and the Ritz-Carlton Battery. He also covered other expenses, including buying her an apartment. As the relationship progressed, Shapiro took control of all aspects of his life. She caused him to break all ties with his family, stole his credit card information, and tracked his location. Shapiro also introduced him to her family at a synagogue when he attempted to break up with her. But when she left him alone with them, they refused to sit near him. Bivens finally realized she was a scammer when he visited her apartment, which he bought, and discovered she changed the locks. Once inside, he found the gifts he had bought her still in the wrapping. Shapiro begged him not to evict her, saying she would have to move back in with her old uncle if he kicked her out. Bivens later learned that the man she referred to as Uncle Joel wasn't her relative, but an 83-year-old man she shared a physical relationship with. By this point, Bivens had spent $408,640 on high-end furniture, $260,000 on luxury clothes, and $130,700 on home accessories and other expensive items. When Bivens changed the locks himself, Shapiro retaliated by claiming he assaulted her and had him arrested. She filed a $25 million lawsuit against him, accusing him of battery, assault, and emotional distress. Bivens countersued for $10 million, claiming negligent misrepresentation, breach of contract, conspiracy to commit fraud, unjust enrichment, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. She was completely catfished, but somehow her scammer actually fell in love with her, and she was scammed into shaving her head. Let's find out what happens when scammers go after the most gullible people. Number 5. Catfished. Christine Settingsgaard was a successful business executive looking for love. As a single mother of 3, Christine didn't have a lot of time to go out and meet people the traditional way. Tired of being alone and single, Christine decided to join the dating app Hinge in the hopes of finding a meaningful relationship. So when she matched with Mark Godfrey, Christine was quickly drawn in by his good looks and gentle manner. Mark claimed to be an architectural engineer from Greece who was working in the United States. He said he was a widower with a 5-year-old daughter named Haley who was living with his sister Kelsey in Utah. Mark was a candidate that checked all the boxes. He was kind, considerate, and also looking for love. As their relationship developed, their conversations moved off of Hinge. Mark would regularly text, call, and even wrote Christine a love poem. He seemed like the perfect match. Mark had an accent Christine thought was hard to place, but sounded European, and he strangely never video called her, but he was charming, cared about her interests, and even took an interest in the peonies in her garden. It's easy to overlook a bunch of red lights when you're so desperate for greens. After 6 weeks of talking, Mark asked Christine to help transferring some money to his sister and daughter who lived in Utah. Christine said she would, but before doing so, she asked Mark for some type of ID. She trusted him, but she wasn't stupid. Mark complied without issue, immediately sending over his California driver's license, so Christine transferred the $500. Demonstrating that he's trustworthy, Mark quickly paid her back. Mark traveled a lot for work, so they couldn't meet yet, but Christine was patient. She knew eventually they would be together and everything would be perfect. Mark was even making plans to whisk her away on whirlwind vacations, and Christine was walking on air. But then, Mark asked Christine to do something bigger, deposit an $85,000 check into her bank account and wire $82,000 to his sister in Utah. Mark said he couldn't access his bank account from where he was working, so he needed her help and would allow Christine to keep $3,000 as a thank you. Christine agreed to transfer the $85,000, having no reason not to help. Mark's plan was to mail her a check for the amount, and all she had to do was deposit it into her bank account and then wire the funds to his sister. Christine followed Mark's instructions and deposited the check into an ATM. Due to a loophole with depositing checks in ATMs, the $85,000 was available in her account the next day without having to wait for the check to clear. So Christine sent the money to Mark's sister. Job done. A day later, Christine received a call from her bank telling her that the check had bounced, and she now was responsible for the entire amount. In an instant panic, Christine contacted Mark, who claimed to have no clue what was going on or why the check would bounce. Not long after, Christine received a message from someone on Mark's account who claimed to be working with the FBI. They explained that Mark was part of a criminal network in Nigeria and that she had been scammed. Christine was devastated and furious when she realized she had been scammed out of $85,000. And worst of all, she found out that the poem he'd written her wasn't even his. This scammer was also a straight-up plagiarizer. The scammer contacted Christine again a few weeks later and claimed to have fallen completely in love with her for real. But Christine wasn't having it and demanded to know who Mark really was. She got her answer. His real name is William Ojo, and he sent her a picture of himself that looked vastly different from the man she thought she knew. Ojo said that he was part of a criminal network in Nigeria and had been scamming her all along and begged for her forgiveness. Oh, and could she deposit another check for $30,000? Christine, of course, said no. Christine turned to friends, neighbors, and her parents for help. It wasn't until she went public with her story that her bank agreed to wipe her debt. Her bank would have happily left Christine almost $85,000 in the hole if it wasn't for all the potential bad press. Even then, she was still left with over $5,000 in phone bills from the scammer's expensive international calls, which her phone company refused to waive. This romance nearly left Christine broke in more ways than one. Number 4. Broke Bruno Mars? Bruno Mars is one of the most successful musicians today, with 11 Grammy Awards and countless hits under his belt. But it seems like even world-famous pop stars like Bruno Mars can fall on hard times financially. Despite his success, Mars is currently in the middle of a concert tour, and according to reports, he's struggling to cover the expenses. In an effort to raise the money he needs and make ends meet, Mars has turned to his new girlfriend, a Texan retiree, for help. Luckily for music fans everywhere, she has agreed to provide financial assistance. Wait, what? Lonely hearts beware. Even with Valentine's Day approaching, not all romances are as they seem. Just ask the anonymous 63-year-old Texas woman who was scammed out of $100,000 after falling in love with someone who claimed to be Bruno Mars. It was supposed to be a love story for the ages. An older woman finally finding companionship and happiness in her later years with none other than pop superstar Bruno Mars. But in a shocking revelation that surprised everyone, it was all a scam. The 63-year-old victim was conned by two Nigerian men who pretended to be Mars on social media. The men struck up a relationship with our victim and gained her trust over time. The men, Chinwendu Azwanwu, 39, and Basil Amadi, 29, reached out to the woman and convinced her that Mars was interested in pursuing a relationship. Bruno Mars is one of the world's most famous pop stars, so it's no surprise that someone might impersonate him online in order to take advantage of trusting individuals. And that's exactly what happened to this Texan woman. The woman was communicating with the men through Instagram and Google Hangouts, believing she was talking to the singer himself. Apparently, Mars was interested in pursuing a relationship with her and that he was going to retire from his concert tour in order to be with her. The woman eventually agreed to help Mars cover his touring expenses by depositing $100,000 into bank accounts controlled by the scammers. The names on the accounts may have sounded strangely Nigerian, but true artists are eccentric, right? Chinwendu Azwanwu and Basil Amadi are now facing charges of money laundering. If convicted, they could each spend up to 10 years in prison. This 24-karat tragic story is a reminder that not all relationships formed online are genuine, and that it's important to be cautious when sharing personal information or financial resources with someone you've never met in person. Unfortunately, even the cautious get caught. Number 3. Worst best friend. Nikki Reynolds was excited to be maid of honor at her best friend Angela's second wedding, and Angela certainly looked beautiful as she walked down the aisle for the second time. As the two women embraced after the ceremony, Angela whispered in Nikki's ear that she needed to borrow some money. Nikki was taken aback. She knew that Angela was going through a divorce, but she had no idea that things were so dire. Nikki agreed to loan Angela whatever she needed and promised not to tell a soul. A few weeks later, Angela asked for another loan. She said that her ex-husband had died in a farming accident and that her share of the money from the divorce settlement would be increasing dramatically from £5 million to £77 million. So she just needed to float a little. Angela promised Nikki that she would take care of her once the funds came through, promising the good life of houses and cars. Angela Kitchener was also secretly dying of cancer, but apparently didn't tell her new husband. Despite to help her friend, Nikki loaned her around £27,000, putting the needs of her dying friend before anything, because Nikki is awesome and we should all be so lucky to have a friend like that. But it quickly became clear that Angela had no intention of paying the money back. Apparently, Angela Kitchener had always been a bit of a con artist. Angela's deceit began to unravel when Nikki met another of Angela's friends. The friend confided that she had also lent Angela money. They both got talking about their experiences and realized something wasn't right. The women decided to investigate further and soon discovered that Angela's claims about her ex-husband selling a business and dying in a farming accident were all lies. In fact, he was very much alive and well. Angela was arrested and eventually admitted to 2 counts of fraud and was jailed for 3.5 years. When released from prison, it's unknown what will happen between her and her former friends, who might still feel the pinch in their pocketbooks. Nobody has gotten their money back. Number 2. Rich company problems. Evaldis Remasauskis pulled off an incredible feat. He managed to get Google and Facebook to pay him over $122 million. And he did it by just asking them for money. Remasauskis was born in Lithuania and raised in a small town called Kaunas. He studied electrical engineering at the Kaunas University of Technology before eventually moving to Riga, Latvia, where he started his own business selling computer parts. It was here that he came up with a master plan to defraud Facebook and Google. Remasauskis set up a fake company called Quanta Computer Inc., which was the same name as a giant Taiwanese hardware manufacturer. He then registered this company in Latvia and began sending invoices to Google and Facebook for goods they hadn't ordered. Amazingly, both companies paid up without question. Remasauskis' grift was pretty clever. He sent Google and Facebook invoices for items they hadn't purchased, which the companies then paid. Remasauskis was extraordinarily brazen in his scam, going so far as to even register a fake company under the same name as a real Taiwanese hardware manufacturer, Quanta Computer Inc. Remasauskis also forged various documents purporting to be from executives at both Facebook and Google authorizing the payments. It wasn't until 2015 that the scam was finally uncovered. Over the course of 2 years, between 2013 and 2015, Remasauskis received $99 million from Facebook and $23 million from Google with his forged invoices. Remasauskis had also routed the money through various foreign accounts in Cyprus, Lithuania, Hungary, Slovakia, and Latvia in an attempt to make it harder to trace. Luckily, authorities were able to catch him before he could disappear with the money for good, although they were only able to recover around half of what was stolen. When Lithuanian authorities caught wind of his scheme in 2017, Ivaldis was extradited to New York, where he pleaded guilty to 1 count of wire fraud. In 2019, he was sentenced to 60 months in prison in order to forfeit nearly $50 million, as well as pay back close to $26 million more. It's not clear what's happened to the other $46 million, but Rimasauskas was a prolific and baroque money launderer who squirreled away cash in Cyprus, Lithuania, Hungary, Slovakia, and Latvia. With $46 million stashed in bank accounts around the world, that 5-year prison sentence will probably fly by pretty quickly. Number 1. Just a little off the tip. Megan Randolph was sitting at home, scrolling through her phone, when she got a text from a number she didn't recognize. The person on the other end, who identified herself as Ashley, said that she'd been referred to Megan and that Redken Beauty Products was looking for someone to shave their head and eyebrows in a video tutorial. Ashley promised it would be quick and easy money with no risk involved. Just send a video of herself doing it, and she'd be paid handsomely for her trouble. Megan Randolph, a former model, was now out of work and struggling to pay the bills. So when she received a text from someone claiming they could help her make some quick cash, she was intrigued. Megan was reasonably skeptical, but the caller seemed legitimate. They knew who she was and had even checked out her work as a model beforehand. Redken does have a popular campaign offering tutorials on how to style and handle hair at home, so that only added to the offer's authenticity. Knowing this, shaving all your hair clean off is a big ask, so Megan decided to investigate the phone number to be sure. It appeared to be registered to Redken, so she called it and left a voicemail asking about the offer. After receiving a call back from what sounded like a legitimate business line, Megan decided to go ahead with the offer. After all, what did she have to lose? Besides, like all of her hair, her eyebrows. So on Friday, with her husband Jake filming, she shaved off all her hair and sent off the video as requested. As soon as the video was sent, Ashley pulled a Kaiser Sose from the usual suspects and vanished like a puff of smoke. Within minutes, the phone number was no longer in service, and Megan's new, shiny white head turned red. The job offer had included a free wig and semi-permanent eyebrow makeup for Megan following the video submission process, but all she was left with was her bare skin and regrets. In the meantime, Jake had set up a GoFundMe page to help raise money for a wig and eyebrows for Megan. Fortunately, all Megan lost was her hair and some pride. Click to watch one of these next videos. Let us know in the comments section what you think is the best dating app.